The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the faint hum of distant sirens, as Daniel stood in the middle of the dimly lit street, staring at the vibrating phone in his trembling hand. The streetlights flickered, casting uneven shadows across the cracked pavement. Daniel whispered, "Why now? Why like this?" His breath misted in the cold night air. Call came again, shrill and sharp, and when he answered, a voice cold and urgent spoke. "If you don't decide, your son dies." Daniel's heart pounded, his chest tight with dread, his mind racing with questions that had no answers. His hand shook so violently he nearly dropped the phone. Emily appeared at the edge of the street, her eyes wide, her voice breaking. "Daniel, what's happening?" He turned toward her, unable to speak, tears stinging his eyes. The voice on the phone cut through again. "Time is slipping away. Choose now or lose everything." Daniel's knees weakened, his vision blurred, and the weight of silence pressed harder, each second clawing at his sanity. He closed his eyes, hearing both the voice of the caller and Emily's desperate cries. Daniel whispered, I can't. The street seemed to stretch endlessly, an abyss of choices where no answer was safe. Emily rushed closer, her voice trembling as she cried, "Daniel, answer me!" The silence between them was pierced only by the hum of the phone, still clutched tightly in his hand. Daniel turned, his face pale, eyes unfocused, as though trapped between two worlds. His lips parted but no words came out. Emily said, "Please, what did they tell you?" Daniel stepped back, his chest heaving, his gaze avoiding hers, searching instead the empty darkness behind her. His voice finally cracked. "They want me to choose." Emily stopped in her tracks, her expression breaking into fear and disbelief. The night seemed to close in, the air pressing heavy with dread. Daniel's voice wavered. "If I stay silent, someone dies. But if I act, I may destroy everything else." Emily's eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she whispered, "We can face this together, but don't push me away." The weight of her plea made his knees weak again. Daniel lowered his head, muttering, "I can't escape this." Daniel staggered back until his shoulders touched the cold brick wall, the rough texture grounding him in a nightmare he could not escape. Emily followed, her footsteps hesitant, her voice breaking. "Tell me, Daniel, what choice are you being forced into?" He closed his eyes, gripping the phone so tightly it hurt, whispering, "They said my silence will kill our son." Emily gasped, stumbling closer, her face pale with horror. No, this can't be real," she said, her voice a fragile whisper. Daniel shook his head, voice strained. "It's real, Emily. Every word." The silence grew louder than any sound, their breaths ragged, and the tension between them stretched to breaking. Emily said, "Then we fight back. We don't surrender to them." Daniel's eyes met hers, heavy with despair, his voice trembling. "What if by fighting, we lose him anyway?" Her lips parted in trembling defiance. "We can't give up." The phone vibrated again, its shrill tone cutting through the night, and Daniel flinched as though struck. Emily pressed closer, whispering, "Answer it. Maybe we can buy time." He shook his head violently, his voice breaking. "No, every word I say is a trap." Emily reached for his arm, her voice fierce. "Then let me talk." Daniel pulled away, his voice trembling. "If they hear you, they'll know we're desperate." His hand covered his face, tears spilling between his fingers. Emily's own tears broke free, streaming down as she whispered, "Then what do we do, Daniel? Tell me what we do." He lowered his hands slowly, his voice hollow. "I don't know anymore." The night swallowed his words, and even the hum of the city seemed to vanish, leaving only the sound of their grief. Emily pulled Daniel's trembling hands away from his face and forced his eyes to meet hers. Her voice trembled, but held steel beneath it. "We can't collapse, not now, not when our son needs us most." Daniel swallowed hard, his voice cracking. "I've failed before, Emily. I don't want to fail him too." She shook her head, firm and desperate. "You're not alone this time." The phone buzzed once more, its glow staining Daniel's face with harsh blue. He looked at it as if it were a weapon pressed to his chest. Emily whispered, "We choose together." His lips quivered, a tear sliding across his cheek as he said, "But what if choosing destroys us?" Emily's voice broke into a sob. "Then at least we tried." The silence that followed felt heavier than the world itself. The dawn crept slowly through the blinds, filling the small apartment with pale, reluctant light. Daniel sat slumped at the kitchen table, his hands clasped tightly, staring at nothing. Emily moved quietly behind him, her footsteps hesitant, her voice breaking the silence. "You didn't sleep, did you?" He shook his head, eyes hollow, whispering, "I can't escape the sound of that voice." Emily leaned against the counter, her arms folded, trembling slightly. "We can't keep running from it. We need to understand what they want." Daniel's jaw tightened, his words sharp. "What they want is for me to break." He pressed his palms against his eyes, the weight of exhaustion bending his frame. Emily softened, whispering, "You're stronger than this, Daniel. But I need you to fight with me." He lowered his hands slowly, his eyes red, his voice a rasp. "What if my strength isn't enough?" The fridge hummed in the silence, and Emily stepped closer, her hand resting on his shoulder, whispering, "Then we'll carry it together." Emily poured coffee into 2 chipped mugs, her hands shaking just enough for the liquid to ripple. Daniel lifted his eyes, voice hollow, "I keep seeing his face, Emily, our son's face." Emily set the mug before him, her own voice breaking. "That's why we can't give up." Daniel wrapped his fingers around the cup, warmth fighting the chill that clung to his skin. He whispered, "What if I make the wrong choice again?" Emily crouched beside him, her hand gripping his arm, eyes burning with tears. "Then we live with it together. But silence is killing us already." Daniel turned, searching her face for strength, whispering, "You still believe in me?" She nodded, fierce even through her tears, "Always." The steam curled between them, a fragile lifeline in the heavy air. Later, Daniel stood at the window, blinds casting prison bar shadows across his face. His voice was low, almost to himself. "It's like I'm trapped in my own silence." Emily, seated at the table, her hands gripping the edge, whispered, "Then break it, say something, anything." He turned toward her, anger flaring beneath exhaustion. "And if it kills him? If my words trigger the end?" Emily rose, her voice firm, though her eyes shone with fear. "Then at least we tried to fight back, Daniel." His chest heaved as he stared at her, silence dragging between them. She softened, stepping closer, whispering, "I believe our son's life is worth risking everything for." His voice cracked, "Even if that risk destroys us?" Her lips quivered, but she nodded slowly, "Yes." The air between them was thick with both fear and fragile resolve. Emily placed an envelope on the table, her hands trembling as she pushed it toward him. Daniel stared, frowning. "What is this?" She whispered, "Evidence. The kind that can tear them apart." His eyes widened, his breath quickening. "Where did you get this?" Emily bit her lip, her voice low. "I've been digging for weeks. I didn't tell you because I knew it would scare you." Daniel gripped the envelope, pulling it close, his voice hard. "This is why they came for us." Emily nodded, her eyes wet. "If we stay quiet, they win. If we use it, we risk everything." He slammed the envelope down, his chest heaving. "And if using it kills him?" Emily stepped closer, whispering, "Then we decide what's worth the cost." Daniel paced across the small apartment, his steps heavy, hands raking through his hair. He muttered, "Every choice feels like a death sentence." Emily stood in his path, forcing him to stop, her voice sharp. "Then stop thinking of it as a choice. Think of it as a stand." He stared at her, eyes burning with unshed tears, whispering, "I don't know if I have the strength left." Emily stepped closer, her hand pressing to his chest, her voice fierce. "Then lean on me, Daniel. We'll fight until there's nothing left of us." His breathing slowed as he placed his hand over hers, whispering, "I'm terrified." She whispered back, her eyes locked to his, "So am I. But fear doesn't mean we surrender." Silence wrapped around them, heavy but charged with fragile determination. The night returned, draped in storm clouds that hid the stars, as Daniel pounded his fists against the cluttered desk, papers scattering like broken truths. Emily rushed to his side, her voice trembling. "Daniel, stop, you're scaring me." He turned, eyes red and wild, his voice cracking. They want us fractured, Emily. They want me to lose everything before I even choose. His chest heaved, each breath jagged and sharp. Emily placed her hands over his fists, whispering, "Then don't give them what they want." He pulled his hands free, slamming them into his head as he whispered, "I can't think straight anymore." Emily's tears spilled as she said, "Then let me think for you. We'll figure this out together." His eyes softened briefly before hardening again, his voice low, "If I trust you, and we fail, then I've destroyed us both." She pressed closer, her whisper firm, "If you don't, you'll destroy yourself first." Lightning flashed outside, throwing their shadows against the wall like fractured silhouettes. Daniel stormed into the narrow hallway, pacing like a caged animal, muttering, "Every second wasted is another nail in his coffin." Emily followed, her voice sharp, "You can't save him by tearing yourself apart." He stopped abruptly, turning to face her, his eyes burning. "Then tell me what to do, Emily. Tell me how to save him." She faltered, clutching the wall for strength, her voice breaking. "I don't know, but silence will kill us faster than their threats." Daniel pressed his forehead to the wall, his breath ragged, whispering, "If I make the wrong move, we'll lose him forever." Emily reached for his back, her voice softer. "And if you do nothing, we've already lost him." His shoulders slumped under her touch, a man breaking under unbearable weight. Thunder shook the building, echoing the turmoil inside him. The phone rang again, slicing through the storm's roar. Daniel froze, his body rigid, his hand hovering above it. Emily whispered, "Answer it, Daniel, or they'll never stop." He lifted it slowly, his voice raw as he said, "I'm listening." The voice on the other end was smooth, mocking. "Your silence is killing him, Daniel." Tick-tock. Daniel gritted his teeth, his knuckles whitening. "You're tearing my family apart." The voice chuckled, "No, Daniel. You're doing that by refusing to choose." Emily's face twisted in silent fury, her whisper sharp, "Don't let them own you." Daniel's breath came ragged, his voice trembling, "Tell me what you want." The line went silent, the pause colder than the storm. Then the voice whispered, "We want proof you can obey." Daniel's knees weakened, Emily clutching his arm as though holding him upright. Daniel dropped the phone onto the couch, his hands shaking violently. Emily grabbed it, her voice fierce, "You can't let them dictate our every breath." He turned, his voice raw, "They already are, Emily. They're pulling every string." She threw the phone onto the table, her eyes blazing. "Then cut the strings. Fight back." Daniel staggered, his voice desperate. "And risk him dying? Risk everything?" Emily stepped closer, almost nose to nose, her voice trembling but sharp. "Hell die if you give them your soul first." Silence choked them, their breaths heavy, faces inches apart, eyes wet with grief and fire. The storm outside rattled the glass, echoing their rage. Daniel collapsed onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. His voice muffled, "I'm not strong enough, Emily." She knelt before him, forcing his hands down, her eyes fierce and wet, whispering, "Then let me be strong for both of us." His eyes flickered with pain and exhaustion, whispering, "They'll break me." Emily shook her head, voice trembling, "Only if you let them. But if we stand together, they can't own us." His lips parted, whispering, "I'm terrified every second." She pressed her forehead against his, her tears falling onto his cheeks, whispering, "So am I. But fear means we still care, and that means we fight." His chest rose and fell unevenly, the storm easing outside as if holding its breath. The storm had eased into an unsettling calm, leaving the city damp and still. Daniel sat at the table, staring at the envelope Emily had shown him earlier, his voice trembling. "This isn't just evidence, Emily. This is their trap." Emily leaned forward, her voice low. "No, Daniel. This is our weapon." He rubbed his temples, whispering, "What if using it means we sacrifice him?" Emily's breath hitched, but her voice stayed firm. "Then they've already won, and we're just actors in their play." Daniel's fists clenched, the weight of truth pressing heavy. "I thought I knew who they were. I thought I knew the enemy." Emily's face twisted in confusion. "What are you saying?" Daniel's eyes burned with dread, his voice raw, the voice on the phone. He knew things only Michael could have told him. Emily froze, her lips parting. Michael. But he saved us once. Daniel nodded, whispering. And now he's the one pulling the strings. Emily stepped back, shaking her head violently, her voice breaking. No, Daniel. It can't be Michael. He risked everything for us. Daniel stood, pacing, his voice sharp. That's what makes it perfect. He earned our trust. Emily pressed her palms to her face, tears spilling. Why would he do this to us? Why him? Daniel slammed his fist against the wall, his voice shaking, because survival isn't about loyalty. It's about control. And Michael always wanted control. Emily lowered her hands, her voice trembling. He was our ally. Daniel stopped pacing, his voice dropping into a whisper. No, Emily, he's our jailer. He's been leading us into this cage all along. Silence settled like a blade between them as the revelation fractured the last of their certainty. The phone buzzed again, its glow cutting through the darkness. Daniel snatched it up, his voice trembling. Why, Michael? Why betray us? A chilling laugh filled the silence before the voice replied. Because you never understood. I gave you strength when you were weak. Now I'll show you the cost of weakness. Emily clutched Daniel's arm, whispering, hang up, don't give him more power. Daniel's voice broke. He has our son, Emily. Michael's voice turned sharp. And you have my secrets in that envelope. Use them, and he dies. Stay silent, and maybe he lives. Emily's eyes widened with horror, whispering, he's forcing you to choose him over truth. Daniel's face twisted in agony as Michael added, your morality is your weapon, Daniel, and it's always been your downfall. Daniel dropped onto the couch, phone slipping from his hand as his voice cracked. He's been using us from the beginning. Emily knelt beside him, her eyes fierce despite the tears. Then we use his secrets against him. Daniel turned toward her, his voice hollow. If we do, we could lose our son forever. Emily's hand tightened on his knee, her whisper resolute. If we don't, we've already lost him, and ourselves. Daniel's body shook with the weight of the choice, his lips parting in broken whispers. Every path leads to ruin. Emily shook her head, her voice sharp. Not ruin. Truth. And maybe truth is the only thing left worth fighting for. The air between them pulsed with fear, anger, and fragile defiance. The silence stretched unbearably before Daniel finally whispered, if Michael holds all the strings, then maybe cutting them means cutting him out completely. Emily's eyes widened, her voice trembling. You're talking about destroying him. Daniel nodded slowly, his voice grim. If he wants obedience, then maybe disobedience is the only weapon left. Emily shook her head, whispering, but at what cost, Daniel? At what cost to our son? His jaw clenched as he whispered, I don't know, but if we let him control us, then our son grows up knowing his father bowed to fear. Emily's tears spilled, her whisper fierce, then we choose together. No more secrets, no more silence. Daniel's gaze met hers, fragile but burning together, Emily, no matter the outcome. The storm outside was gone, replaced by a silence heavy with fate. The room was silent, except for Daniel's ragged breathing as he stood over the table, the envelope trembling in his hands. Emily whispered, if you open it, there's no going back. His jaw tightened, his voice raw. Michael wants me broken, but I won't let him. He tore it open, papers spilling like ghosts, evidence of corruption too deep to ignore. Emily gasped, her hand to her mouth, whispering, this could destroy him, Daniel. His eyes blazed, his voice shaking, or it could destroy us. Emily stepped closer, her voice fierce. Then we choose whether to be slaves or fighters. His chest heaved as he whispered, if I send this, I may sign our son's death warrant. Emily's tears shimmered in the faint light, her voice trembling. If you don't, you're already signing ours. The moment thickened into an unbearable weight, the choice before him absolute. Daniel staggered back, clutching one sheet of paper, his voice breaking. This proves everything. But is truth worth his life? Emily reached for the page, her hand trembling, whispering, truth is the only weapon we have left. He pulled it back, his eyes wild. And if Michael kills him tonight? Emily's face twisted with anguish, her voice sharp. Then Michael already owns us. Daniel slammed the page on the table, his fists shaking. "I won't let him own me." Emily pressed her hand to his chest, whispering, "Then take back your power, Daniel. Not for him, for our son." His body trembled with the weight of decision, his breath uneven, as if every inhale might be his last. The phone rang again, the sound cutting sharp into the silence. Daniel answered, his voice hoarse. "Michael, it ends tonight." The voice laughed, smooth and cruel. "You think you control the board? Every move you've made, I said it." Daniel's grip tightened, his voice sharp. "Not this time." Emily clutched his arm, whispering, "Don't let him bait you." Michael's voice dropped low, chilling. "If you release what you hold, you'll hear your son's last breath." Daniel's knees bent under the weight, his whisper breaking. "God help me." Emily's voice cracked but fierce. "Don't let fear be stronger than truth." Daniel closed his eyes, whispering into the phone, "Then I choose truth, no matter the cost." Silence on the line, stretched like a knife. Daniel placed the papers into the scanner, his hands trembling violently, each movement slow as if dragging a boulder. Emily stood behind him, whispering, "Once you press send, there's no turning back." He swallowed hard, his finger hovering over the button, whispering, "Every choice feels like betrayal." Emily's voice steadied, though tears streamed. "Then betray fear, not truth." He pressed the button, the machine humming as the files were sent. His knees gave way, falling to the floor, whispering, "It's done. God forgive me." Emily crouched beside him, holding his face, whispering, "You didn't fail. You fought." The machine beeped, confirming, and silence engulfed them, broken only by their uneven breaths. The phone rang instantly after the files were sent. Daniel answered with shaking hands, his voice cracking, "Michael, it's done." The voice hissed, "You chose truth over blood. Now you'll watch him pay." Daniel collapsed further, his cry torn from his chest. "No, please." Emily seized the phone, shouting, "You're the coward, Michael. You hide behind fear." Silence. Then Michael's cold laugh filled the air. "Fear is power. And power is survival." The line went dead. Daniel's face sank into his hands, his voice broken. "I've doomed him, Emily." Emily pulled him into her arms, whispering fiercely through tears, "No, Daniel. You've doomed Michael. We'll fight the storm together, whatever it costs." The weight of their choice settled heavy, the air still as stone. The apartment was eerily quiet after the storm of choices, the silence louder than thunder. Daniel sat slumped on the couch, his hands covering his face, whispering, "It's over, Emily. But I don't know what's left of us." Emily sat beside him, her eyes red but unwavering. "We're still breathing, Daniel. That has to mean something." He pulled his hands away, his face pale and drawn, voice trembling. "If Michael kept his word, our son lives. If he didn't, I've sacrificed him for nothing." Emily pressed her hand into his, her grip firm though her fingers trembled. "We fought with truth, not with surrender. That's the only thing we could do." His eyes flickered to hers, a fragile light in the darkness, whispering, "And if truth destroys us?" She held his gaze, her voice breaking. "Then we face the ruins together." Daniel rose slowly, moving toward the window as pale daylight revealed a city still wet from rain. His voice was low. "The world out there goes on, unaware of the blood price inside these walls." Emily joined him, standing shoulder to shoulder, whispering, "Then maybe we let the world carry us for a while." He pressed his palm to the glass, staring into the distance. "I can't escape the feeling that Michael's shadow is still here, watching." Emily turned her head, her voice quiet but steady. "Then let him watch us endure." Daniel's reflection in the glass looked hollow, older than the night before, as he whispered, "Endurance feels like punishment." Emily leaned against him, whispering, "It's also survival." Emily returned to the table where the scattered papers lay, picking them up carefully, her voice breaking. "These are Michael's sins, Daniel. They can destroy him." Daniel turned, his voice bitter. "They can also destroy us if they trace them back here." Emily looked down at the papers, her hands shaking, whispering, "Then we live with the weight of both outcomes." Daniel approached, taking one sheet from her hands, staring at it with trembling resolve. "Every line on these pages is blood. every signature a betrayal. Emily's eyes shone with tears as she said, "And yet, they're the only proof we didn't bow." He let the page fall back onto the pile, whispering, "Proof won't bring him back if Michael meant what he said." Silence pressed around them, heavy and unrelenting. Daniel sank into the chair, his shoulders slumped under invisible weight, whispering, "We've exposed him, but at what cost?" Emily sat opposite, her voice quiet but resolute. The cost was never ours to choose. It was his. Daniel's eyes glistened, his lips trembling. "But our son pays the price for my decision." Emily reached across the table, gripping his hands tightly. "No, Daniel. Michael pays when the world learns what he's done." His tears spilled, his voice hollow. "I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself." Emily's grip strengthened, her voice soft but unyielding. "Then don't. Just carry it with me." The words echoed like a fragile vow, a bond forged in grief and survival. The clock ticked softly in the corner, each sound a reminder of time passing mercilessly forward. Daniel leaned back, his voice raw. Every second feels like it belongs to him now. Emily stood, walking to his side, placing a hand gently on his shoulder, whispering, "Then let's steal them back. Let's live even in the ruins." Daniel tilted his head back, staring at the ceiling, whispering, "I don't know if I can." Emily's grip tightened, her voice trembling. "Then let me help you remember how." He lowered his head, eyes swollen with exhaustion, whispering, "If we keep breathing, then maybe we've already won." Emily bent, pressing her forehead against his temple, whispering, "Yes, breathing means we endure." The moment was fragile, but it pulsed with the quiet promise of survival. Night returned, but it was no longer a storm. It was a hollow quiet that pressed against the walls like a heavy shroud. Daniel sat alone at the table, staring at the scattered papers, his voice faint. "Truth is out there now, but he's still not here." Emily entered softly, placing a hand on his shoulder, whispering, "Maybe truth is all we could give him." Daniel shook his head, eyes wet. "Our son deserved more than sacrifice." Emily's tears shimmered in the dim light as she whispered, "And he still deserves us, broken as we are." Daniel's chest rose and fell unevenly, his whisper sharp, "Every choice cuts, Emily, and I'll never stop bleeding from this one." Silence clung to the air, wrapping them both in grief and fragile defiance. Daniel rose slowly, moving to the window where the night city glowed faintly in neon haze. His voice cracked, "How many people walk these streets, blind to the choices that kill us inside?" Emily joined him, pressing her shoulder to his, whispering, "Maybe they'll never know, but we'll carry the knowledge for them." Daniel's reflection stared back, hollow and aged. His whisper filled with anguish, "Carrying it feels like a death that never ends." Emily leaned her head briefly against his arm, whispering, "Then let it be the kind of death that saves others." The city hummed outside, alive but indifferent. Emily turned, walking to the couch, her voice trembling but resolute. "Michael thought fear would own us forever, but he was wrong." Daniel followed, lowering himself beside her, his whisper raw. "He took everything that mattered." Emily shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Not everything. We still have this, our choice, our defiance." Daniel looked down, his lips trembling, whispering, "Defiance doesn't bring him home." Emily grasped his hand tightly, her whisper cutting through. "No, but it keeps us from being slaves." His eyes glistened, pain etched in every line. But in that moment he nodded faintly, as if conceding to her fragile hope. The phone lay silent on the table, but its presence loomed like a weapon. Daniel's gaze locked on it, whispering, "Every time it rings, I'll wonder if it's his voice or his silence." Emily sat across from him, her voice quiet but strong. "Then we'll answer together, no matter what waits on the other side." Daniel lifted his eyes, broken but steady, whispering, "Together." Emily's lips curved into a faint, sorrowful smile, her whisper trembling, "That's all we have left, Daniel. But it's enough." The moment was small, fragile, yet it felt like a vow against the abyss. Daniel and Emily sat side by side on the couch, the silence of the apartment wrapping them in fragile stillness. Daniel whispered, "Fear was supposed to end us." Emily leaned her head on his shoulder, whispering, "But instead, It showed us what we refused to be. His lips quivered as he whispered, "We're not free. Not yet." Emily closed her eyes, her whisper tender. "No, but we're still here, and that matters." Daniel lowered his head onto hers, their tears mingling in quiet surrender. The clock ticked in the background, the sound echoing like a heartbeat, marking survival in the ruins of everything lost.